Hello everyone and welcome back to another Dawn of War 3 open beta video. This time we're just going to be covering the basics of starting a multiplayer match in Dawn of War 3 and several things that you should definitely do from the get-go. So as you can see on screen, the first thing I did was send my worker to go cap a resource point. Normally I would send my worker to cap the nearest resource point to my base, be it on either side. It doesn't particularly matter in my experience. This means that you get the earliest opportunity to build a generator for requisition and then a generator for power on that node and get your economy just flowing as soon as possible. It basically just allows you to get more income than your opponent if they don't do the same thing. And the second thing you should do, as you should be able to see on screen in the bottom left corner, I build a couple of basic infantry units for whatever race that I'm playing. Naturally, playing as Space Marines, I build tactical squads. They are the basic unit. For Eldar, you have the Dire Avengers, who have access to a microwable plasma grenade that does a lot of knockback and a little bit of damage. And for Orcs, you have the Boy Squad, who are just godly in melee in the first few minutes. So, other than this, what you want to do is upgrade all resource nodes on your side of the map. And basically, you don't get any bonus from capping a node in Dawn of War 3. You only get the bonus from that node after capping it when you build an actual generator on it. So you can't go on your opponent's side of the map, decap and then cap one of their points and not spend anything on it, and gain resources that way. You have to actually invest in a generator, which your opponent can then destroy. So this means that because generators can be destroyed, building generators on the often highly contested resource nodes in the middle of the map is sort of ill-advised unless you have a clear-cut lead at the start of the game. Maybe you take a really good engagement, wipe out maybe just one of your opponent's squads, and that means that you feel comfortable making some generators on the nodes in the middle. But other than that very niche scenario, doing it is definitely not advised. So another thing that you should definitely do is make the most of your racial units and abilities. So if you're playing as Space Marines, one of the things you definitely should do is stick one of your tactical squads that you build in the beginning, most likely the third tactical squad that you make, just so that your other two are actually on the map and able to cap points and do some actual shooting. Stick that third tactical squad, if you do build a third one, in the drop pod they have available from the start of the match. This means that you can take advantage of the ability to do the drop pod damage if you slam it directly on top of an enemy unit, and also the knockback is not insignificant. It gives you a chance to just do some extra damage whilst they don't shoot you, and yeah, it can really tip a battle in your favour, as you saw there. We both used our drop pods, but because I had more units than him, I came out on top. And with the other races, this translates through to using the Orc Boys' War kind of shout ability, which gives some buffs. So before you hop into a fight with your boys, just stand them back a bit out of harm's way, don't let them get shot up. Whilst you do this, activate the shout, let them kind of get all angry, and then go charge an enemy unit and see what happens. The Orc way, as it were. And with Eldar, always remember to use the Dire Avengers' Plasma Grenade ability, which the knockback ability of their Plasma Grenade is definitely not to be underestimated. Very similar to the Space Marines' drop pod kind of knockback function. It's just a bit of utility that really can tip the scales of the fight in your direction. So one more thing that you should definitely consider is forward base kind of potential. If you take a really good fight at the start of the match, maybe you want to take a really aggressive forward base. Now this is different for each of the races, since each of the races function differently in this regard. So Space Marines, what I like to do is often build a forward base in the center island on your side of the map. As you can see, when I flick over to the forward base, I've built a barracks, and that means that I can call in units such as Assault Marines and Scout Snipers. It gives me a wider range of units, and it also gives me a much closer reinforcement point than my opponent has access to if they haven't done something similar. As you can see on screen, my opponent has built a forward base, but it's not quite as aggressively positioned as mine is, and this gives me a very slight advantage positioning-wise. In addition, if you're playing as Eldar, one thing you can do is cap your first resource point at the very start of the match, but whilst you're capping it, build your warrior gate, as this means with the Eldar's ability in the tier 2 tech of the webway gate, you can move your buildings around the map using teleportation. And this means that you can build your warrior gate way over on your side of the map in a really weird position, and then later move it up to just a more useful position, maybe more aggressively positioned if you start taking bad fights, maybe more defensively positioned. But yeah, the Eldar have that really nice bit of flexibility with that ability to teleport buildings around the map. And with Orcs, making a forward base is all about considering where you want to commit to on the map, as Orcs can't move buildings around, similar to Space Marines, and really they want to lay claim to a piece of territory and build on that really aggressively. So they make a boy hut, they make a couple of Warg Towers, tech up into trucks, kind of etc, etc, and really kind of lay claim to that piece of land. And if they lose that piece of land, because they can't teleport buildings out of danger, they really kind of get in a really bad situation at that point in the game, if that happens, which is why you have Warg Towers and access to Warg Towers, kind of design-wise. It allows them to have a defensive turret type thing outside of just a listening post. So, as you can see on screen, we're really just contesting a point with our units. We've called in our Deathwatch kill team, and that gives us access to a very early Flamer ability, which is very sick because it gives us just a really nice edge against infantry, and if we were playing against Orcs, we would be in a really nice position. In addition, the Vortex Grenade is also very useful. And as you can see on screen, as I mentioned earlier, using your unit's microball abilities to maximum advantage, as you can see, Assault Marines, as you would expect, completely hard-countered Devastator squads. And this is what happens. I use their jump microball ability to land on top of their heads, knock them back, stop them from shooting up my squads, and then beat on them in melee, which naturally Devastator kind of heavy gun squads are not good at. They're more Dakar focused. So, a few seconds ago we were contesting a point. This is a very important thing to do in the game early on. If you don't contest points, then your opponent really has freedom to do whatever the hell they want. They can do some really cheesy thing, like just go all ranger spam. They can just tech up really fast into vehicles if you're being super passive. And yeah, in addition, they just have a greater economy than you will. So contesting points is very important, but also picking fights is very important. You don't want to take a fight that you're going to take a lot of losses in, as getting a squad wiped is really bad for it to happen. If you lose a squad, that means that you have to spend the time, the resources, and most importantly, the momentum to rebuild that squad and then send it across the map. Now, admittedly, with Space Marines with their drop pod kind of ability, that's less of an issue, because they can just immediately drop it in the right place into a fight. And with Eldar, they do have the webway gates, but early on, they probably won't have built that many webway gates, and won't be quite yet at the stage where they're kind of teleporting around the map all over the place, really Eldar-like. So losing a squad is still very much something you want to avoid, as is taking a bad fight and taking a lot of losses. So as you can see in this game, my opponent was unsure as to what he did wrong, so I just kind of explained. When we see later in this clip, he has built actually a lot of buildings, which is another thing you don't really need to do, to be honest. Admittedly, Orcs do want lots of Warg Towers to some extent, but straight up buildings you don't really need at the start of the match. And as you can see, we're still fairly early in this match. But simply the fact that he spent resources and time building buildings instead of units that can actually fight really put him far behind. So the importance of having buildings is really not up there with the importance of having a unit that can do damage and shoot and contest a point, and just provide value in a straight up fight. So what he had done is built, as well as a barracks, which all Space Marine players do at the start of a match, he also built an arsenal, and I do believe the Doctrine Chapel, which provides access to the 2 variations of Devastator squads, in addition to, of course, tacticals. So this meant that he had so much resources less than I did, and so many units less than I did in every fight, which meant that I could just bully him out of the game. So, prioritizing building units over buildings is definitely a thing to do. Of course, at some point you will need to build additional buildings to unlock kind of a greater variety, a greater range of units to use in battle so that you can throw your opponent off by teching up into vehicles, forcing them to invest into anti-vehicle technology, and then you go back to infantry, something like that. But at the start of the match, units are more important than buildings. So this has really been a very basic video, just kind of optimizing how you play the start of a match. As the start of a match, similar to the video I did yesterday where I discussed the importance of early elites, the start of a match really does kind of dictate the pace of the rest of the game. If your squad gets wiped by an early elite and you couldn't kind of counter-wipe one of your opponent's squads with one of your own early elites, you're put in a really terrible position. And in the same vein, if you mismanage the early game, if you build more buildings than you really need to, and don't have as many units as you definitely need to, then again, you're put in a really bad spot of being unable to realistically contest fights and really kind of put your hold onto a part of the map, as you'll just be pushed out of the game. As you can see is what happened here. We're pretty much just chatting at this point. I'm trying to help him out a bit. And yeah, we're just chilling. So, as always guys, I hope that you found this helpful in terms of just starting a match kind of optimally, and the little optimization for Eldar where you build a warrior gate on your first resource node whilst capping it with your worker unit. Bearing in mind that your worker units for Eldar are so good because they can just teleport warp around the map and be really safe that way. That is definitely something pretty sick. So yeah, as always guys, thanks for watching. I hope you watch the next one, and yeah, ta-ta.